Some wide receivers are flashy. Some wide receivers love the spotlight. Honestly, it's almost expected that star wide receivers are going to act out in some way. But there are those who just produce at a high level and don't grab attention. AJ Green was this type of wideout. He was never a loud or attention-seeking player. He didn't dominate headlines or stir up controversy, and you probably didn't see his name trending on social media for anything other than highlights.
Yes! That's awesome!
Green was a player who just put in the work and produced big numbers. He was every bit as impactful as the best wide receivers of his era, but he never sought out the spotlight. He was consistently overlooked when it came to national coverage, and he lived in the shadow of players like Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, and even Odell Beckham Jr., but Green put a stellar career together. And similar to Julio Jones, he did it without the antics. And that's exactly why I'm making this series, to appreciate superstar players who didn't get the shine they rightly deserved.
In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
Welcome back to Unlikely Success. Like, comment, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Today, we're going to talk about AJ Green's career as an overshadowed star who quietly produced incredible numbers on the field. AJ Green's rise would begin at the University of Georgia, where he was immediately recognized as one of the best wide receiver prospects in the country. His combination of size, speed, and leaping ability made him a nightmare for SEC defenses. Green's college career was stellar, with 2,619 receiving yards and 23 touchdowns in 3 years, and projected to be a top NFL draft pick. And in 2011, the Cincinnati Bengals selected Green 4th overall, pairing him with rookie quarterback Andy Dalton. Coincidentally, he was selected 2 spots ahead of the previously mentioned and previously covered in this series, Julio Jones. From day one, Green proved he was special, as his rookie season set the tone for what was to come, with over 1,000 receiving yards and a Pro Bowl selection. Over the next 7 seasons, AJ Green was the epitome of consistency. He posted more than 1,000 receiving yards in 6 of those years, with the only exception being the byproduct of injuries. He made 7 straight Pro Bowls, a pair of All-Pro teams, and became the focal point of the Bengals offense. He had terrific chemistry with Andy Dalton, and it showed on the field. But Andy Dalton is not an elite level quarterback. For the first time in Bengals history, they made the playoffs for 5 straight seasons. They may have lost in the wild card round each year, but the consistency cannot go unnoticed.
This is what I love, but you know what? Sometimes things you love don't always love you back.
Green's ability to make contested catches, run precise routes, and dominate in the red zone made him a reliable target in every situation, and it played a critical part in the team's success. Green posted more than 1,000 yards in each of these playoff seasons, and he had double-digit touchdowns in 3 of the 5. He was a cornerstone for the team, but despite his incredible numbers, he rarely garnered the same level of attention as some of his peers. Maybe it's the fact that he was slightly less athletic than Julio. Maybe it's the fact that the Bengals never won any of these playoff games. Whatever it is, I don't care. I'm here to bring more attention to Green's career. The 2010s were a golden era for wide receivers, and AJ Green's career unfolded alongside some of the most dynamic pass catchers the NFL has ever seen. We already mentioned Julio Jones a few times, as he was Green's college rival, and in the NFL, Jones was often viewed as the more dominant physical force. Antonio Brown was making explosive plays on Green's NFL rival Pittsburgh Steelers, and he had a larger-than-life personality that was making him a media darling. Well, at least back then. Odell Beckham Jr. had one-handed catches, played in New York City, and his off-field antics captivated fans and the media alike. But Green quietly went about his business, putting up elite numbers and helping the Bengals reach the playoffs over and over again. Was it his fault the Bengals didn't win playoff games? I mean, partially, as his numbers were lackluster in the playoffs, but he was definitely not the specific cause for them. Cincinnati's lack of postseason success and the absence of a moment worth mentioning during any of these games only pushed Green further out of the national conversation. Unlike players who had thrived on the bigger stages, Green never had a signature moment to solidify his legacy in the eyes of casual fans. Unfortunately for Green, injuries began to take their toll in 2018. He missed 7 games that year, then the entirety of 2019. And when he came back in 2020, he was clearly in a different stage of his career. The Bengals began a sharp downturn during this period as they went 12, 35, and 1 from 2018 to 2020, and a clear rebuild was in process. By the time Joe Burrow arrived as the team's new franchise quarterback in 2020, Green was no longer the focal point of this offense. He would leave the Bengals and go on to sign with the Arizona Cardinals in 2021, where he had a productive season, but by then, his prime years were behind him, and after a lackluster 2022, Green would retire prior to the 2023 season. Unfortunately, the last 5 years of his career were marred by injury issues, and this honestly might be what NFL fans remember him for, rather than the great start that his career had. All in all, Green finished his career with over 10,500 receiving yards and 70 touchdowns, putting him solidly in the top receivers of his generation. What makes AJ Green's career so fascinating is how quietly impactful it was. He wasn't just a good player, he was one of the best, but without the flash, social media presence, or playoff heroics that defined some of his peers, Green's greatness often goes unnoticed. He was an excellent route runner, had elite size and speed, and was a consummate professional. His peers recognized his talent. Many cornerbacks who faced him have spoken about how difficult it was to cover Green, praising his physicality and intelligence. Yet fans and media overlook him all the time, even as he consistently delivered at a high level. AJ Green may have never been the loudest or most celebrated player, but his impact on the field speaks for itself. He was a quiet superstar, embodying excellence without seeking the spotlight. For Bengals fans, he'll always be a legend. And for those who watch closely, Green's career is likely remembered properly. It makes you wonder though, how could anyone overlook a player who made 7 straight Pro Bowls? He's one of the best wide receivers of the 2010s, and somehow, he still gets looked right past. The Bengals teams he was part of are known for never winning any of those wildcard games, and Vontaze Burfict knocking out Antonio Brown, rather than the stellar play of their star wide receiver. But that's how it sometimes goes in the NFL. Great players have great careers, and they can easily be overlooked.
When we talk about the greatest receivers in the game, there are 3 names that continually come up. But you really are in that class. There are 4 receivers at this moment that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack, and yet I'm guilty of this too. Your name somehow gets left off. There's Antonio Brown and Julio Jones and Odell Beckham Jr. The way you guys have been playing recently, it's you. You're the 4th guy in that pack. Why do you think your name gets left off?
I don't know. You look at my numbers, better than all of them up there, a lot of them. But like I said, I don't look at that stuff. I know I can do. I know I bring to the table every Sunday.
This has been The Unlikely Success.